This is CNN Breaking News.
Hey, I'm Brian Stelter. Welcome to Reliable Sources. We do begin with breaking news about a second whistleblower in the Ukraine scandal. Actually, we need a new name for this scandal, and we're going to get into that. The lawyers who are representing the first intelligence whistleblower who came forward with accusations against President Trump are now confirming they are representing a second person, a second whistleblower. Here's a tweet from one of the lawyers saying, "My team now represents multiple whistleblowers in connection to that August 12th disclosure." The lawyers say no further comment at this time, but the information we're hearing is that this new whistleblower does have firsthand knowledge that supports the claims made by the initial whistleblower. So it's a lot to keep up with, but the reports are, and the confirmation, first reported by ABC this morning, is that a second whistleblower is now involved. Now, my take on this is that this is another sign that the legal whistleblower process is working. Checks and balances are working. You know, look, I was going to start the show today by bemoaning just how dark these days are. A president blowing his top, asking foreign governments to find dirt on his opponents, accusing lawmakers of treason, calling the press corrupt. Chuck Todd was right. This national nightmare is upon us. And frankly, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I think there are reasons to be optimistic right now. I think the ugly truth is coming out. Congress is getting to the bottom of it. And the nation's leading news outlets are leading the way, blowing this scandal wide open, explaining how Trump is abusing his power, decoding the text messages and the other evidence that's coming out, interviewing sources from D.C. all the way to Ukraine, and showing how all of the evidence, in the words of the Washington Post front page story today, how all the growing evidence buttresses the report from the original whistleblower complaint. Reporters are asking the right questions, in some cases prompting Trump to admit to misconduct right there on live TV. And reporters are digging up more information, like this, from the Washington Post this weekend. It's a different headline. It says, Trump's calls with foreign leaders have long worried aides. Some of those aides are, quote, genuinely horrified by the conduct on these calls with world leaders. Now, I read that and I wondered, when were they going to tell us? But here's the point. The process is working. Inch by inch, one story at a time, we are finding out more. So right now I see three big challenges for the press and the public. First, keeping up with the torrent of news. I think daily explainers, stories like this, here's the latest, newsletters, all of that is helping us keep up. Number two, keeping an open mind. Let's not assume that we know what is going to happen here. Nobody knows how this is going to end. And I think the third challenge for the press and the public is keeping an eye, a wary eye, on the disinformation campaigns that are going on without getting suckered by it. Right now, Trump is protected by his Fox News fan club, by a force field of falsehood that is excusing his behavior and claiming that the deep state is out to get him. You see what he's doing on Twitter all weekend long. Right-wing media is Trump's ultimate wall. He's using that wall, tweeting out clips from his favorite Fox News shows. That's continuing at this hour. But there are a few signs of cracks in the wall. This reality distortion force field may not be working as well as it used to. So right now, let's start right there with expert analysis from our guests here in New York. The New Yorker staff writer Masha Gessen is here. CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy is here. And Juliet Huddy, a former Fox News host, who's now the co-host of Curtis and Juliet on 77 WABC Radio here in New York. Thank you all for being here. Let's unpack what is going on. Oliver, what is the current right-wing media defense of Trump? Is it providing a firewall for the president?
Sure. If you watch outlets like Fox, it's not enough really to say, Brian, that they're being dishonest. It is an inverse image of reality. And what I mean by that is if you watch Fox, it's not President Trump who has potentially abused the powers of his office. It is Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. If you watch Fox, it's not Trump who is lying to the American people on a regular basis. He's the truth teller. If you watch Fox, it's not the right-wing fever swamps who are spreading conspiracy theories. It's the mainstream media. Total inverse image of reality. And if Trump does happen to survive this deepening scandal, I think he can only credit this right-wing media machine for poisoning the public dialogue and distorting truth for millions of people to the point where people can't tell, you know, what is happening, what is the truth and what is fiction.
Right, so they just throw up their hands.
Right.
You've been covering conservative media for years. You used to work at Glenn Beck's The Blaze website. Do you see cracks in the force field?
Well, certainly, I think the one place I'm paying attention to right now is the Drudge Report, which is headed by Matt Drudge, was very supportive of the president early on, and he seems to have completely turned on the president. And he has for a while been sort of the assignment editor, if you will, for right-wing media. And so him potentially turning on the president is huge.
Right now, his headline is, second whistleblower comes forward.
Right.
He's not shying away from the news the way others might be.
No, he's spotlighting the news, and he's also spotlighting the commentary of some of the president's, the people who the president does not like. People like Shep Smith, people like Judge Napolitano. He's spotlighting their commentary, saying, hey, the president may have committed crimes. And the second person we'll talk about is Tucker Carlson has written this op-ed where he no longer says that the president's call with Ukraine is defensible. He's actually saying it's inappropriate.
He's saying there's no way to spin that call.
There's no way to spin it. That's what he's saying. Now, obviously, there's a caveat. He is, in his op-ed, defending the president, saying that while he may have made an inappropriate phone call, it doesn't rise to the level of impeachment. But I still think it's a bit of a retreat from this right-wing narrative, which is that the president's call was perfect, that there's nothing to look at, and hey, look at Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. This is a bit of a retreat from, that I think we're seeing from Tucker Carlson. It's repositioning maybe for a new way to defend the president, but it's still noteworthy.
Still defense, though.
Right.
And Juliet, you worked at Fox for many years, 18 years at Fox News and the local station. What do you see happening today? How does this look to you?
Well, I think that you have to look at Tucker Carlson is a great example. I mean, he's getting out there and he's putting something slightly negative, but then by the same token, immediately he follows with, but, you know, this impeachment thing. So I think that they're just trying to play both sides. They're kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth. And that's one of the things that Fox is very effective at doing. It's kind of, it's not so much that it's particularly clever or that they're so much particularly diabolical, even though some people think that they are. It's that they're doing something that we did when we were little kids, which is lying by omission. At least some of us did when we were little kids.
Lying by omission.
Lying
so
by
just
omission.
Leaving out key details.
They leave out the context. They leave out facts. They spin it so that it gives just enough information, but not all of the information. But the information that it did give out, it pushes their narrative.
You've said that you witnessed this firsthand during the Obama years.
Oh yeah.
When you were hosting Fox and Friends Weekend.
Yeah.
Is it worse now? Is it better? Have you seen Fox change?
It's so much more hardcore than it was when I was there in the mid-2000s. Once President Obama was elected, I definitely sensed a shift. It seemed like what I like to call sort of the outline of the show, which is the introductions to the guests, the introduction to the segment, the banners that you see at the bottom of the screen. They like to, that's very subtle. They do it very well. But those are things that they're very effective at pushing the narrative with that don't seem so blatantly obvious. For people like us who are in the industry, we know, we get it. But for people at home, the layperson, they might not get that. And so I think Fox has become very effective. I would sit down on the set and I would see a script for the first time in the teleprompter live on air, and I'd be like, I'm not going to say Obama's the devil. You know, I have to edit on the fly here, exaggerating a little bit, sort of. But that's you have to kind of take what they're saying with a grain of salt because you're not getting the whole story.
Of course, the president is watching. This is what he's consuming and then spitting back out via Twitter, and that's that feedback loop that we're seeing. I wonder, Masha, as the author of books including The Future is History, How Totalitarianism Reclaimed Russia, if what we are seeing here in the United States reminds you at all of state-run media in other countries, is what we're seeing something similar at this point?
A bit. I mean, what you see in a totalitarian country, which of course this country is not, and most countries are not, but what you see is a forced reality.
Forced reality.
Yeah, where basically the subject of a totalitarian state is told, okay, you have to inhabit this reality. This is the only available reality. What observable facts are not a part of something, of the thing that's available to you. And that relies on state terror. What's amazing about Trump is that he has created this completely encapsulated reality without relying on state terror. Right? It's a much softer
right. All he does is tweets insults at Mitt Romney.
That's not all he does, but it is a perfectly encapsulated universe. And I think, you know, all of us are living in a state of this incredible anxiety and have been for about 2.5 years, where on the one hand we have what is observable to us as fact, on the other hand we have what is coming at us through the tweets, through Fox News. Even if you're not watching it, you're sort of getting it through osmosis. And there's a kind of temptation there, right, to sort of, you could just move in. You could live in that space and be unconflicted. And I wouldn't underestimate the force of that.
Let me show you what Geraldo Rivera said about this earlier in the week. He was on with Sean Hannity, basically crediting Sean Hannity with making sure Trump does not become like Nixon. Here's what he said.
You know, if it wasn't your show, Sean, they would destroy him absolutely. You're the difference between Donald J. Trump and Richard Nixon. In Nixon's case, if he had someone that stuck up for him, he wouldn't have been, motivated to cover up that burglary. He would have let the perpetrators get their just desserts.
Juliet, is your former colleague right?
I will say that Hannity is kind of the king of the lying by omission, of leaving the facts out. And I think he's been he pretty much is the guy that has kept Trump as a hero. There are people at Fox who are trying to do the right thing and trying to be objective and trying to tell the whole story. I don't think Hannity is one of them.